Time for convening having arrived, we will come back to order. Ring the bell. Let's get folks back in here. Secretary will read House Bill 310.
House Bill 310 by Representative Powell of the 32nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 42 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to penal institutions so as to create the Board of Community Supervision, the Department of Community Supervision, and the Governor's Office of Transition, Support, and Reentry to provide for the responsibilities of DCS with respect to supervision of adult and juvenile probationers and adult parolees, to enact reforms recommended by the Georgia Council on Criminal Justice Reform to reassign responsibilities of the Advisory Council for Probation and the County and Municipal Probation Advisory Council and the Board of Community Supervision, to reveal provisions relating to such councils, to transfer responsibility of certain functions of probation and parole supervision to DCS, and make corresponding changes with respect to the jurisdiction of the authority of the Department of Corrections, Department of Juvenile Justice, and the State Board of Pardons and Paroles, and for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 18th to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am delighted to present to you another bill from our governor, which is House Bill 310. The very good work done by Representative Powell, who's in the chamber with us, and I'm glad he is. He put a lot of work into this bill, and it's something we can be proud of, and I hope that we pass very quickly out of this chamber. This bill establishes the Department of Community Supervision, and it is in essence a restructuring bill. What it does, it takes three departments: the Department of Corrections, the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and the Department of Juvenile Justice, and combines those into what will be administered by the Department of Community Supervision. There are two other aspects: the Advisory Council on Probation and the County and Municipal Advisory Council on Probation, which will also be moving under moving under this new structure for supervision that way. The purpose is to streamline the probation and reentry programs that we have in this state. from multiple departments into one. In essence, the best way I can describe this to you is it will take 4 or in some cases 5 different departments that have employees that have different skill sets, and we will now have one department, one agency that will have the skill set of the 4 previous ones, so that we'll have more efficiency. These employees and personnel will be able to do more and be far more efficient in their dealings. This allows us to train one person to have a skill set that 3 people now have. As I said, in essence, is a restructuring. It also transfers the appropriations and the personnel and the equipment to this new department. There are no new appropriations anticipated, no new people anticipated to be hired, and no new equipment. There are no questions, Mr. President. I'll be happy to yield the well.
You do have a question. Chair recognizes Senator from the 34th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, whenever I hear merge or streamline, I'm concerned about reduction in memberships. Will this creation reduce the memberships on the 2 boards? And if so, to what number?
No, Senator, it's not anticipated to reduce the overall workforce or the efficiency. There is the creation of this 9-member board, but it is not anticipated to overall reduce the staff or the delivery of the services that are provided by the existing agencies we have.
Senator, further to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Today, both the State Board of Barbers and the State Board of Cosmetology has board members. My question is, will the 2 of them being merged, those board members, will they be consolidated? Well, I'm getting on 310. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong bill. That's what I get for going to lunch.
That's okay, Senator. I was about to
Thank you for yielding.
I was about to be confused myself. Mr. President, if nothing further, I'll yield the well and ask for everyone's favorable consideration of...
One question, Senator from 23rd.
Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Yes, sir.
And doesn't this bill also address a lot of issues with misdemeanor probation?
It does. It does do that, and does so effectively, and also will enable and ensure that we have that being administered much more efficiently as well. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that question.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection agreed on the Porter Committee which favor pass the bill? The chair is none. Porter Committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair is none. Main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 33 and the nays are 3, and this bill, having C-Rex Constitution majority, is therefore adopted. Secretary will read House Bill 314.
House Bill 314 by Representative Tankersley, the 160th, and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to professions and businesses so as to combine the State Boards of Barbers and State Board of Cosmetology to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommends this bill do pass. Senator Jeffries is the 17th chairman. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 47th to present the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Wouldn't everybody like to just take a nap? It's a good Friday afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you House Bill 314. It's one that Jan Tankersley's been working on for a couple years along with a constituent of mine. So I'll say this is a constituent bill since he has an office down on the second floor, and it's across the hall from that other guy we talk about on the second floor so much, our Secretary of State. Brian Kemp and his folks have worked very hard to combine basically two boards, shrink the size of government, and save the taxpayers some money. Now I know when I look around the room at the senator from the 8th, the senator from the 30th, and some of these, the fine senator from Henry County, this won't mean anything because they probably don't go see a lot of these folks. But in actuality, what we're doing is combining cosmetology and barbering. So when I look at what I want to do, I want to get out of here before 5 o'clock. So Mr. President said if there's no questions, I'll yield the well, but I'll ask for your favorable consideration.
You have questions. Chair recognizes senator from the 39th.
Will the senator yield?
Yes, sir.
Just for my edification, can you tell us how many people serve on the separate boards, cosmetology and barber board, and how many would serve on a combined?
Quite honestly, board? Off the top of my head, I cannot.
Okay, thank you.
There are. Mullis wants me to stay. There's no moral turpitude in this, Senator 53rd. I'd turn your mic on, Senator from the 30th.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, you.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that cosmetology was your first profession outside of school, and that's why you did this bill today?
I'm still painting my toenails today.
I don't think I should admit that. Senator Yield?
Yes, sir.
Is this a secret ploy for CUVA?
Under the skies. You've got it.
No further questions. Well, there is a question. Chair recognizes senator from the 2nd.
Gentleman, well, do you yield?
For my good friend from the 2nd with a lot of need for this, I can see I'm with you.
Will you be removing any board members from any of the two boards?
I'd actually have to depend on my constituent, the Secretary of State, to answer that question for you.
Okay.
I quite honestly don't know the board makeup.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is the objection agreed and report to committee which fair will pass the bill? Chairs none report to committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chairs none main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass of the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48 and the nays are 0. This bill, MC Rex Constitution majority, is therefore adopted. Secretary will read House Bill 313.
House Bill 313 by Representative Dickey of the 140th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 20 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to leaves of absence for certain public employees, so as to authorize the application for limited paid leave for the purpose of promoting education in the state, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Education and Youth recommends this bill do pass by substitute. Senator Tippins of the 37th, the chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Education and Youth offers the following substitute to House Bill 313, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 20 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to leaves of absence for certain public employees, so as to authorize the application for limited paid leave for the purpose of promoting education in the state, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes the distinguished senator from the 30th, Carrollton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I'll be extremely quick on this one. This allows us to set the standard for getting into the school systems and volunteering. State employees that are non-temporary employees can request up to 8 hours a year to go into this educational system and help within that educational system.
Thank you, Senator. Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection? Nope, I'm sorry. Hold on. We got a late arriving amendment.
Okay, I yield the will.
Secretary will read the amendment.
Mr. President, Senator Miller of the 49th and others offer the First Amendment to amend the Senate Education and Youth Committee substitute to House Bill 313 by deleting lines 1 and 2 and inserting in lieu thereof the following: to amend Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to public officers and employees, so as to authorize the application by inserting on lines 3 and 4 the following: per diem expenses of certain boards to provide for, by deleting on lines 7 and 8 and inserting in lieu thereof the following: Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to public officers and employees, is amended in Code Section 45-7-21 relating to expense allowance and travel cost reimbursement for members of certain boards and commissions by revising subsection B and adding a new subsection to read as follows: B, striking whenever, with the exception of any elected board listed in subsection A of this code section, whenever this code section or any other law of this state provides that members of any board, commission, or other body shall receive the same daily expense allowance as members of the General Assembly, whether by specific reference to this code section or any other law by a more general reference. The members of such board, commission, or other body shall receive a daily expense allowance of $105. Such $105 dollar amount shall apply for members of such boards, commissions, and other bodies, regardless of whether the amount actually received by the members of the General Assembly under Code Section 28-1-8 is more or less than $105. The provisions of this subsection shall control over any conflicting provisions of any other earlier enacted law. See the daily expense allowance provided in the subsection A of this code section for members, and that completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Senator the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. President. When would be the appropriate time to withdraw my amendment?
Right now.
So done. Thank you, sir.
Senator's asked to withdraw his amendment. Is there objection? Without objection, he has that right. The question now is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection? Without objection, committee substitute is adopted. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection? Agree in the Report of Committee. Which favor pass the bill. Chairs none. Report of Committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chairs none. Main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 45 and the nays are 2. And this bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. The Secretary will read House Bill 278.
House Bill 278 by Representative Clark of the 98th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Chapter 22 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated the Public Employee Hazardous Chemical Protection and Right to Know Act of 1988, so as to transfer responsibility under such chapter to the Safety Fire Commissioner to define certain terms, to provide for rules and regulations, to provide for provision of certain information relative to hazardous materials, to the Commissioner to provide for grievances and judicial review, to provide for related matters to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends this bill do pass. Senator Harper, the 7th Chairman. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 30th to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. What this bill does is transfer the functionality, or put in code, the functionality to remove what you see right there, the Public Employee Hazardous Chemical Protection and Right to Know Act of 1988, from the Department of Labor to the Department of Insurance. Both of them want this to happen. Nothing new, just moves it from one agency to another. Thank you. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is the objection agreed and report of committee which fail will pass the bill? Chair hears none. Report of committee is agreed to. All those in favor of the bill vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49 and the nays are 0, and this bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Secretary will read House Bill 277.
House Bill 277 by Representative Broderick of the 4th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Part 2 of Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to an imposition rate, collection, and assessment of state sales and use taxes, so as to value all flooring samples at the same rate for purposes of fair market value, to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Finance recommends this bill do pass. Senator Hill of the 32nd Chairman. Mr. President, there is a... that completes the order, Mr. President.
We've had a request for someone to check the senator from the 28th machine. We think it's malfunctioned. It voted green. Chair recognizes Senator of the 14th. Present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're just hoping that Senator from the 28th, we can do a twofer. This is House Bill 277, very simple bill. Current law, carpet samples are taxed at a fixed percentage of their cost. If you go back to 2003, that's when they set this at about 21.9%. All this bill does is it takes these samples right now, which are carpet samples, and changes it in the language to include other samples, which are flooring samples. With that, Mr. President, I'll yield well unless there's questions. Do I? Oh, boy, here we go.
You do have a couple of questions. Chair recognizes Senator from the 41st. First.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, do you mind yielding?
Absolutely.
After that long, detailed description, I still have a question. What does that mean? What is the financial impact? Are people going to pay more or less taxes? Is there a fiscal note with this, or why would one not be needed? Who are we helping? The carpet industry, or the state, or just a little more detail, Senator, if you would.
There is a fiscal note on that, and the fiscal impact is $250,000 to $500,000 a year. What it is the manufacturers provide these to the retailers. The manufacturers right now, instead of them being taxed at this full rate, it was negotiated at 21.9. We're just changing the language. Instead of it being carpet samples, right now they offer more than just carpet samples. So if you go to these locations, now you have wood floor samples.
So, Senator, further yield? So that means that it will, when you say that the effect is $255,000, I assume you mean $255,000 or approximately that, unless taxes raised, that it would be a tax decrease.
There's less tax to the manufacturer on this.
And repeat the amount again, Senator, if you would.
I'm sorry?
The amount again was 250.
Yeah, the note says 250 to 500,000. It's difficult, it says, to quantify exactly. They're just samples.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 28th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I will.
Just to be clear, we're expanding the number of materials that are subject to this tax, correct? I mean, we went from carpet to a very broad definition of floor covering. So we're exposing more of these samples to taxation, correct?
I suppose you could say we are expanding it.
Okay. And I know this was in the original code, but can you tell me why a prior legislative body would decide that, I think it's why there's two different tax rates, one for, I assume, residential and one for commercial. And there's huge from a 21.9% to a 1% variation. Do you have any information on that?
I have no information on that, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 54th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the Senator yield for a friendly question?
I will.
Isn't it true that the floor covering samples you have in front of you now are actually taxed at a higher rate than the carpet samples? So the senator from the 28th question about these is expanding. In fact, it's actually subjecting these samples to the lower sales and use tax rate than they are currently subjected to.
That's correct.
And it isn't also true, Senator, that these products, these items that you have in front of you are being taxed for reasons that many people find sort of inexplicable, as though they were being sold and used under sales and use tax, when in fact there is no residential, commercial, practical use for what you hold in your hands and what we're talking about in the actual world.
That's correct.
And isn't it also true, Senator, that while those of us in the floor covering industry do like folks to walk all over us, it's not the tax man that we feel that way about?
The senator knows as he speaks.
Chair recognizes Senator 27th for a question. 47th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator yield?
I will.
You know, I remember seeing a picture of you a while back, a couple of weeks ago, said you were having some birthday cake and ice cream, and you had carpet on top then. I'm not sure if you've been sitting too long in that barber chair. Could you kind of address that?
Yeah, I'm not sure the definition covers rug, it just says carpet, but. Are we good?
Yeah, if I were you, I would.
Thank you. You yield well.
Senator, you wish to speak? Yep. Chair recognizes Senator from 54th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a point of clarification, Senators, on two issues. One, because I've been asked so many times today, I won't be recusing, in part because I don't sell anything that's hard surface in our business, and certainly even if I did, it wouldn't be unique or peculiar to me. But I do want to clarify and follow up to the question that I asked. Several years ago, the carpet industry raised with the state the issue that these sample goods, these sample materials, shouldn't be subject to taxation at all, even though the Department of Revenue felt that they were. A negotiated position was reached that a 21.9% of the raw material input would be subject to the tax. And so that was for carpet. Of course, that was what was the dominant part of our industry in that day and age. But today, hard surfaces and resilient surfaces is a large part of the floor covering industry in Georgia. And for manufacturers, they have some samples that are going out at one tax rate and some samples that are going out at another. There's plenty of us that like to see it go out at zero, but this is just making all flooring samples treated equally in terms of taxation. Mr. President, I yield the will and ask your favorable consideration of this bill.
Chair recognizes Senator 24th for a question. No?
I didn't have a question.
You want to speak? All right, no problem. No questions. Senator from 24th, what purpose you rise?
Mr. President, I would like to ask unanimous consent that I be able to use Rule 5-1.8 and not have the right to vote with this.
Senators requesting to be excused on a conflict. Without objection, he will be excused. Now, does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is the objection agreed on the Porter Committee which fair will pass the bill? Chair is none. Porter Committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair is none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48 and the nays are 1. And this bill, MC Rex Constitution majority, is therefore adopted. Chair, Secretary will read House Bill 237.
House Bill 237 by Representative Williamson of the 115th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to the imposition rate and computation of exemptions from state income tax so as to extend the angel investor tax credit, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Finance recommends this bill do pass. Senator Hill of the 32nd, Chairman. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 46th to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you today a bill to extend the angel investment tax credit. This is an investment tax credit that helps people start up new businesses, applies only to Georgia corporations that are 3 years or younger. It's limited to 35% of your investment against taxable income, no more than $50,000 per company, and no more than $5 million in an aggregate per year. I think this is a great program. We started this back in 2010, and it's to encourage investment in young startup Georgia companies. The bill only extends the sunset a period of 3 years. I would strongly encourage your adoption of this bill. Willing to yield the well or take any questions.
Senator from the 41st is recognized for a question.
Senator Yield.
I yield.
Could you tell us the financial impact and if there's, any study or work's been done to kind of see how the angel investment program's been going and how it's returned some growth to Georgia?
I don't have the list of companies, but there are a number of companies in Georgia that were unable to get investments, such as issuing stock or getting investments through banks that have benefited from this greatly. A lot of them are generated by the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech. They're incubators, I think they call those new business startups.
Further yield, Senator?
I yield.
Do you know if any study will be done or is kind of being conducted as it goes along to help us in the future, see how it's, affecting the state? I've heard in some other states this angel investment has helped, businesses, but what is being done to assure us in the long term that we're seeing a return for Georgia's involvement in this program?
I'm not sure how we are tracking that, but I certainly support it. It's such a new program, only being on the books for 3 or 4 years, that it's hard to tell if it's been effective yet. We know we're getting investments in young startup companies from it, but as far as any tremendous success stories, I think we need to give it more time. And that's one reason this just extends the sunset for an additional 3 years so we can monitor it, make sure it's working and getting the results we want before we commit to it full time.
Right. Chair recognizes Senator on the 56th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I yield.
Senator, isn't it true that in the last few years, this angel investment tax credit has directly prevented many companies who would have normally ended up in Boston or New York or Silicon Valley from staying here?
I'm sure it has. In fact, the research triangle up in North Carolina, it's one of the tools that North Carolina is using, and it gets us on an equal footing with them.
Thank you, Senator. Final question, isn't it true that aside from this Senate body and our own president being a champion for this cause, didn't we just recently open the Atlanta Tech Village, which is a huge incubator for this very reason, and how this is going to help bring more high-tech and high-paying jobs to Georgia?
That is true, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. Thank you.
No further questions, Senator.
I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is the objection agreed? A Porter committee which fail pass the bill? Chairs none. Porter committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chairs none. Main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 3, and this bill, MC Rex Constitution majority is therefore adopted. Secretary will read House Bill 202.
House Bill 202 by Representative Battles of the 15th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Title 48 of the OCGA relating to revenue and taxation so as to provide for the comprehensive revision of provisions regarding the ad valorem taxation assessment and appeal to provide for related matters, to provide for effective dates, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends this bill do pass by substitute. Senator Hill, the 32nd chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance offers the following substitute to House Bill 202, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to revenue and taxation, so as to provide for the comprehensive revision of provisions regarding the ad valorem taxation, assessment, and appeal, to modify certain provisions relating to tax executions, to provide a definition to change the timing of the sales tax executions, to change certain provisions regarding the publication of ad valorem tax rates, to change certain provisions relating to interest on unpaid ad valorem taxes, to change certain provisions regarding penalties for certain incomplete or improper tax digests, to change certain provisions relating to joint county appraisal staff and contracting for advice and assistance, to change certain provisions relating to ascertainment of taxable property and for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator on the 14th. Present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back up here with another bill that we've seen this bill for almost 4 years. I'll start out with saying HB 202, for the most part, is HB 295 from last year that the House passed overwhelmingly 165 to 3. This bill makes several changes to the administrative property tax. It's been worked on, again, as I said, for over 4 years by a coalition of property tax advocates, business trade organizations, tax commissioners, superior court clerks, ACCG, and several tax attorneys and tax consultants. Last year, the bill died on the last night in conference committee. This issue with the superior court clerks that held up the bill last year has been resolved. This bill makes several changes that will benefit our property tax owners if they appeal their property value. With that, Mr. President, I appreciate your favorable consideration, and I yield the well.
Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection? Without objection, committee substitute is adopted. Now, does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection? Agree in the report of committee which fail pass the bill. Chair is none. Report of committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair is none. And questions ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass the bill. All those in favor vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary unlock the machine. That's pretty good. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48 and the nays are 0, and this bill, item C, requires constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Secretary will read House Bill 439.
House Bill 439 by Representative Shaw, the 176th, and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to general provisions regarding insurance, so as to establish qualified low-income community investment, to provide for a short title, to provide for definitions, to provide that certain entities may earn credit against state premium tax liability, to provide for certification of qualified equity investments, to provide for recapture of credit claimed under certain circumstances, to provide for certain refundable fees, to provide for retaliatory tax, to provide for decertification, to provide for an effective date and applicability, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends this bill do pass by substitute. Senator Bethel, the 54th Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor offers the following substitute to House Bill 439. Bill to be entitled, an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to general provisions regarding insurance, so as to establish qualified low-income community investment, to provide for short title, to provide for definitions, to provide for certain entities may earn tax credit against state liability, and for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
The chair recognizes Senator from the 54th. Present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I bring before you House Bill 439, which actually involves two initiatives designed to promote investment in Georgia, and in particular to promote redevelopment and investment in low-income parts of our state. The first is the New Markets Jobs Tax Credit. That is Section 1 of the legislation you have before you. This is an initiative that's modeled on the federal New Markets Jobs Tax Credit. And the second, in Section 2, is the Invest Georgia Fund, and an expansion of our Invest Georgia Fund. Obviously an initiative that's been in place for a few years now in Georgia and has been championed by the President of the Senate. Senators, essentially the new markets portion would allow up to $100 million to be claimed as premium tax credits for investments in low-income parts designated as such and consistent with the federal plan and certified by the Georgia Department of Economic Development. The Invest Georgia Fund would be increased by a $55 million limit, and so we would be a total of $155 million. All of that would not be accessible immediately because the investment has to precede the claiming of the credits. Mr. President, there's a lot of pages in the bill. I would yield for questions. If there are none, I will yield and ask favorable consideration of the bill.
There's a question from the senator from the 41st.
The senator yield.
I yield to the leader.
Thank you. Senator, so you've stated the money going to the Invest Georgia Fund and the other money. So the total revenue lost over 8 years is about $140 million.
Over 8 years, that would be realistic. When you say lost, it is important to remember that the credit is an 11% credit against an investment made in a low-income portion of Georgia. So there's a 9-to-1 match, if you think about it in those terms, of dollars that would not be invested absent. I mean, the evidence is the states that are participating in this federal program, the evidence is that those dollars wouldn't otherwise be invested. So if there's a 9-to-1 investment being made in our low-income areas, we would hope that that would generate revenue based on those revenues, based on those jobs, based on improved infrastructure in those communities.
Senator, further yield.
I yield.
The concerns I have is that, you know, we've discussed CAPCO in the past and some of the, you know, complicated methods that it's utilized makes it hard to determine whether it's effective or not. You know, 12 states have rejected it. And I'm wondering, I know this is not all about CAPCO. Can you tell us a little bit about how that...
It is a... Thank you very much, Senator. It is a very fair analogy, but I think there are some important distinctions, and I take the opportunity to make them. CAPCO models are not subject to federal oversight, whereas the New Markets is under the federal system. CAPCO models are not subject to recapture of credits, whereas the New Markets model is subject to recapture. And in fact, a federal recapture action would immediately trigger a state recapture action without any action on the state. It would be as a matter of law. On the investment schedule, in a New Markets scheme, 85% of the capital raised must be invested in a qualified business within the first 12 months. 150% of the capital invested is done so by the end of 7 years. In a CAPCO, that varies widely. I mean, there's a lot of different structures. As for like the tax credit schedule, the New Market system says 0 for the first 2 years, so the investment must precede the claiming of the credit. Then it's the 11% after that. In a CAPCO, it varies. Often it's immediately available in the first year before the investment's been front-loaded. The geographic targeting that's done in the New Markets is not generally a characteristic of a CAPCO model, whereas here we're looking to target low-income portions of our state. The types of businesses are specified by the federal New Market model, and then the economics. You can't take fees out of a New Market system, and there cannot be any principal distribution from the system until 150% of the capital raised is actually invested, whereas, as you know, most CAPCOs are subject to immediate fee withdrawals, and principal distributions can come very early in some of the systems.
Senator, further yield.
I yield.
In this GBPI paper we have on our desks, it mentions that the tax credits are available to insurance companies, not to individual taxpayers. Could you explain a little bit on why those credits are limited to the insurance companies?
Well, I think, Senator, the idea is that you're creating an incentive for the investment. So the individual benefits, because the investment is made, it's certainly made with the tax credit, but the tax credit in question is a premium tax, so it's only insurance companies that will be paying that. I appreciate you bringing up the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. In fact, they had one of their analysts come speak to our committee, and we incorporated some of the provisions of Invest Georgia, and some of the transparency provisions were actually incorporated into the House's new market language, and I think everyone's actually receptive of that. And they were actually, Georgia Budget and Policy Institute was actually complimentary of the fact that we were including those provisions in.
Senator, further yield.
I yield.
Isn't it true that they did say that that was much more transparent, but still some of the legislation that doesn't fall under that, they worry about whether or not there's transparency throughout?
By no means do I think that GBPI is endorsing the legislation, but I do think that it was important that their concerns and issues were heard, and we tried to account for them. Certainly there may be policy discrepancies about the best way to incentivize investment in low-income parts of Georgia, but this is a tool that we wanted to couple with our Invest Georgia initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Senator 39th for a question.
Will Senator yield?
I yield to the whip.
Thank you. I think the minority leader did a good job of making inquiry. I just wanted to ask you a question about a specific element. Wouldn't it have been better to have the companies go through a competitive bid process as opposed to a first come first serve kind of process, and do that competitive bid process so we could get the best companies with the best plans to do the job?
Well, it's certainly, I guess, an option, Senator. I think I guess I look at it from the other perspective in terms of this. I think we are defining what is best, or at least acceptable, appropriate by the criteria, and we are requiring the companies to apply for admission into the plan, and there are specific criteria laid out. In other words, I guess, in a bidding process, what you say is, this is the end result I want, and you look for somebody who's going to give you a low price. Whereas in a model like this, where you allow a credit system, you say, anybody who meets this threshold, anybody who crosses this and is willing to put those dollars up and invest in low-income portions of Georgia, then we're going to allow them to participate first come, first serve. It's certainly, I understand your point. I just think that we are defining what is acceptable by the application process.
Will the Senator further yield?
I will.
I guess we're just going, you're not disagreeing with me necessarily, but I just think that the bid process, competitive bid process, might provide the kind of investments, targeted investment, and that's what my next question is, if you further yield.
I yield.
This does not allow for real estate investments.
That is correct.
In most, for example, in my district, and in some of the issues related to low income and poverty are specific to that locale. Real estate investment might be a better way to go at it, as opposed to a standalone company that could move at any time out of that particular area. Wouldn't it have been helpful for the areas we want to develop to have real estate as an option in this scenario?
Well, better is obviously in the eye of the beholder, Senator, so I'll let you make your own opinion. But I will say that there are a lot of programs, and you know as well as I that I couldn't enumerate them if I stood here unless I had a list, and I'd probably miss one, that are available through the Department of Economic Development, Department of Community Affairs and otherwise to help businesses establish a physical presence, and real estate will be a part of that. It's not a part of this model, and if that's a concern for you, then I respect it. But there are avenues for real estate acquisition as part of economic development through other parts of the code.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 42nd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I yield to my seatmate.
Thank you. One of the things I'm a little concerned about is, and it's already been raised, but the money going to the insurance companies. And first, let me say I'm very glad about the accountability elements that have been added related to the Invest Georgia segment. But, we do hear criticisms a lot that for our various tax breaks that we have put into law, we don't have adequate accountability, or just, ensuring that that the money that we're spending of our citizens' money has the result that we intend it to have. How do you feel that this will provide our citizens assurance that we are going to account for that money, especially since instead of going, as I understand it, directly to a company or a person, it's going to be run through an insurance company, which seems to make it even harder to track. Tell me a little more about that,
Well,
please.
thank you for your question, Senator. As I said, the investments must be front-loaded before the credits are claimed and received. So that's one catch. In other words, the money is actually going to be expended and at work in the community. And the second, which I didn't mention, and I apologize for that, is there is an annual reporting requirement back into the Georgia Department of Economic Development. That's a written, documented report of how we're working, how we're performing and progressing on the proposal and the plan that we submitted as part of the certification process.
I really appreciate that. Will you yield for one more question?
I yield.
I've heard that several other states had also run programs similar to this, and just questioning, it says, I'm looking at this report that says Missouri chose not to renew its program in 2013 after initial reports said that fewer than half the jobs were created. 120 million in and only 823 actual new jobs, and that Arkansas was debating a bill to eliminate theirs. Can you speak a little bit to why you don't have concern that we would be putting ourselves in the same position?
Well, I mean, I think it would be unfair to say I don't. I think I do. I think that we all do. And in anything that we do at this level, that should be our primary concern. Was our intended purpose reached? And if it's failed to reach, what are we going to do? If you look, of course, those aren't the only states that have engaged. There are several states, including the District of Columbia, which is, of course, not a state, but that are participating and having success and seeing success. Okay. Hopefully, with the fact that we're, again, front-loading the investment, following this national model, the federal new markets program, and having that oversight and the transparency allowed with annual reporting, if we fall short, if we find that this is not an effective way of producing jobs and investment in Georgia, then like those other states, we can stop. But it doesn't seem to me that the notion of the potential for failure should be a reason for not acting.
Understood. Thank you for your answers, Senator.
No further questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will. I ask your favorable consideration of the bill.
Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection? Without objection, committee substitute is adopted. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection to agree in a point of committee which fail pass the bill? Chairs none. Point of committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chairs none. Main question order. Shall this bill now pass? Question is on the pass of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary unlock the machine. On the pass of the bill, the yeas are 41, the nays are 9. And this bill, having C-Rex constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Secretary will read House Bill 457.
House Bill 457 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Part 7 of Article 10 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to watercraft held in inventory, so as to provide that watercraft held in inventory shall be exempt from ad valorem taxation, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date and applicability, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends this bill do pass by substitute. Senator Hill, the 32nd Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance offers the following substitute to House Bill 457, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Part 7 of Article 10 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to watercraft held in inventory, so as to provide that watercraft held in inventory shall be exempt from ad valorem taxation, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date and applicability, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 49th District for the purpose of presenting the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I bring before you House Bill 457. Current law provides for an exemption for ad valorem taxes for boat dealers of watercraft, that sunset provisions. It began in 2009 and ended in 2013. This reinstates that exemption, and it has a great effect on all counties that surround large bodies of water, Lake Lanier, for instance, Lake Oconee, Lake Allatoona, Lake Blackshear, West Point, and of course those counties along the Atlantic coast. This has been our practice for many, many years, and it sunsetted it in 2013. We just need to renew it. If there are no questions, I'll yield the will.
Are no questions, Senator?
I'd appreciate your favorable consideration.
The bill is engrossed. There are no amendments pending. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears no objection, and the committee substitute is adopted. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears no objection, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? Chair hears no objection, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? Questions on the passage of the bill? All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the ayes are 43, the noes are 5. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary will read House Bill 255.
House Bill 255 by Representative Chokas of the 138th, the bill to be entitled, an act to amend Part 1 of Article 3 of Chapter 5 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to general authority, duties, and procedure relative to state purchasing, so as to require equal credits to be given by certain forestry certification systems when using green building standards in state construction, operation, repair, and renovation projects, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date and applicability, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs recommends this bill do pass. Senator Wilkinson of the 50th, the chairman. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 11th District for the purpose of presenting the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I bring forth House Bill 255. What House Bill 255 does is codifies a 2012 executive order by Governor Deal to ensure that when using green building standards in our state on public buildings, this is only dealing with public buildings, that we give equal credit to all forest certification programs. Mr. President, unless there are questions, I'll yield the well.
There are questions. The senator will yield for questions. The senator from the 42nd district is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I'll yield.
So, with all the pace of the bills today, I'm trying to catch up a little bit about exactly what this bill does. So is my understanding that this means that LEED certification for buildings for an environmentally friendly building standard could not be sought by in-state construction?
With one certain program, that would be correct. LEED.
And can you elaborate a little bit more about the one certain program?
I said LEED.
Oh, with LEED. Okay,
Yeah.
so my question is, I mean, LEED seems to have been around for a real long time, and I've just never heard anything negative about it. And, you know, my husband is an executive at Home Depot. They love it. I guess I'm a little confused why we want to do this. 88 of the Fortune 100 companies use LEED because it supports their bottom line.
Well, again, this is only dealing with state construction.
Okay.
The governor felt like it was an important enough issue to issue an executive order in 2012 doing the same thing this bill codifies.
But why are we not qualifying? I mean, LEED's been around a long time. It's a great program. It's respected across the country. It's gained more and more and more traction. What is the reason that we have a need to exempt our state buildings?
Great question. It's because the program basically discriminates against 97% of the wood grown in Georgia. The forestry system has several certifications for making sure that our Georgia forests are grown in a sustainable manner, and none of the predominant certifications that are used in 97% of the forest in Georgia, which is a $23 billion industry, are considered certified under the LEED program. The LEED organization has been urged probably for the last 10 or 15 years to change that stance, and they've refused to do so.
Well, will the senator, you have one more question? I guess my question is, why if everywhere else in the country is using this, why is our industry not catching up with where everyone else is? I'm looking at it from the reverse. Can you explain that?
I think that the Georgia foresters have made the decision that that's not a good business practice.
One more question. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here. I mean, to me, what that sounds like is our timber industry is not following best environmental practices on the industry, and that's why they're not qualifying. Am I right, or am I wrong?
I think that our forestry industry would be doing what is in their best interest, which is growing sustainable forests for Georgia. And if over 95% of them are not certified by that special certification, then I think that speaks about that certification more so than it speaks about the foresters in Georgia.
Thank you.
You've provoked many questions, Senator. The senator from the 30th district is recognized.
Senator yield.
I'll yield.
Are there multiple sustainability standards out there other than the one international accord that LEED uses as their basis that the United States is not even a signatory on?
Actually, there are a number of them. I've got a list of about 12. I won't bother to read them all, but there are multiple certification standards that do recognize the type of certifications used in Georgia.
So the forest, I'm sorry, will the senator still yield?
Yes, how are you?
So the forest industry doesn't say that we shouldn't have green building practices. They're just saying that LEED, as an organization or an institution, should probably open their thought process to more than one certification requirement process that the United States recognizes.
That's right. The one that they do recognize, the majority of the wood grown under that certification is not even grown in the United States.
Thank you, Senator. No further questions.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator from the 40th district is recognized.
Senator yield.
I'll yield.
Senator, isn't it true that your bill, I guess, aims to remove an obstacle to Georgia-grown products? Similar to what we did this last year, had a bill where we made school construction optional to use wood that had been fought by the DOE. So this just continues that trend that we want to try to use homegrown products whenever possible. Is that not true?
I think that would be a fair statement, Senator.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Senator from the 50th District is recognized. The Distinguished Agricultural Committee Chairman.
Will the Senator yield?
I'll yield to my friend and chairman.
Senator, is it not true that there are a number of accreditation agencies for forest growers and forestry industry?
That's true, Chairman.
And is it not true that the LEADS program we're discussing, the issue we're discussing, has nothing to do with energy conservation or green buildings? It has more to do with which accreditation system is recognized.
That's exactly right.
And is it not true that under the current standards that timber grown in Georgia is discriminated against?
That would be a fair statement, Mr. Chairman.
And is it not true that we don't need to discriminate against Georgia-grown timber products?
Again, I agree with your sentiment, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from the 36th District is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
I'll yield.
As
To the senator from downtown Atlanta.
That's right. As the proud daughter of a forester who was trained at the Wardell School of Forestry and went on to work as a U.S. forester and worked on reforestation all across the South.
And that is our land-grant university.
Of our land-grant university, Wardell School, highly competitive for admission. Worked his way through there as a young boy that barely got out of South Georgia and got up there to UGA. As a proud daughter of a forester trained here in Georgia and a member of the Ag Committee, to my friend from South Georgia, we did offer in the debate in the Agricultural Committee that we put language in the bill providing for all state buildings to have as their priority the use of Georgia-grown lumber, did we not? And wood products. We offer that was discussed and rejected, as I recall, in the committee.
That would be an accurate statement, I believe.
And for the edification of the body, because a lot of us are not builders or timber people, the LEED certification, which is internationally recognized, and we have a growing number of edifices, private and public, across the state that are LEED certified and do a terrific job, isn't it true, of energy efficiency. But that LEED standard for somebody to build and get that accreditation, there's about 100 or 110 points on there that you can use to qualify for your LEED certification, and that this lumber issue is but one of those many points?
That's accurate, but that's not the point. The point of the bill is so we don't discriminate against Georgia-grown lumber. It's not debating the merits of the LEED point system.
But that wasn't quite the understanding that I think was given to us in the committee, when if it's to get Georgia wood products used in the buildings that we're paying for with state tax dollars, you can do that and gain a LEED certification and not use one stick of timber, isn't it true, that's LEED certified?
That's
true. You can
true.
build to LEED standards and not and choose to not use that a particular type of lumber. Isn't that true?
That's true, but again, the point here is that the LEED standard discriminates against Georgia-grown timber, and I don't think anything you say would change that.
But isn't it true that we suggested just put in the law that when we build these state-funded buildings, the first priority is to choose Georgia-made wood products, and that would get it done.
I hate to sound like some of the people running for the president, but what doesn't change the fact that this standard discriminates against Georgia-grown timber. Mr. President, I'll yield the well. I appreciate your support for House Bill 255.
The sponsors waived off other questions. There is an amendment. The Secretary will read the amendment.
Mr. President, Senator Jackson II offers the First Amendment to amend Senate Bill 255 by striking Section C, replaced with, to avoid the ongoing debate between forest certification programs, the state shall not seek credit for creating wood as part of a green building certification as codified in other code sections. The state will give preference to timber grown in Georgia regardless of the type of building standard a project may take. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Senator from the 2nd District is recognized for the purpose of presenting the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I look at this as a very friendly amendment. LEED is good for business in America. LEED is good for business in Georgia. The truth is that LEED builders, architects, and contractors across this great state get more points under LEED for using local source Georgia lumber. Local source means anything defined as 500 miles within the building site than they do using the 1 point out of 100 points that they can get under leads for using other lumber from other places. Frankly, the closest lumber to Georgia is Arkansas. And that credit does not make sense in Georgia. So this is a friendly amendment to be good for the Georgia Lumber Association. It's good for, and I think it's good for the state. I think it's good for us. I think it's good for our constituents. I hope that you vote for the amendment. Thank you.
There is a question. You waive off questions. It waives off questions. Does the senator from the 11th District wish to close the debate and address the amendment? Senator from the 11th District is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would urge you to vote against Amendment 1. Again, the purpose of this bill is to eliminate the discrimination of the certification system against Georgia timber, and that amendment does not allow that to happen. I urge you to vote against Amendment 1 and vote for the bill. I yield the well, Mr. President.
There's a question, but the senator waives off questions. Question is on the adoption of the floor amendment by the senator from, for what purpose do you rise, Senator?
Point of order. We have two amendments on our desk for 255, and I just need clarification. They look as if they're different amendments, but both numbered one. Is that correct?
We are voting on the one that has the strike-throughs on line. We're voting on the version of the amendment that designates the line numbers on line 2 of the amendment form. The original amendment neglected to make reference to line numbers.
All right, that is the line 28 through 35 and replaced with that.
That's correct. That handwritten notation is on the amendment that we are voting on. For what purpose do you rise, Senator from the 40th District? State your inquiry.
Does this make sense when it says to avoid the ongoing debate between forest certification programs, the state shall not seek? I mean, is he duplicated language there? Line 7, line 8. The state shall not seek credit.
It is. It does appear that in the haste to prepare the amendment, it may not be entirely sensical on those lines.
Okay,
we could perfect the amendment with an amendment to the amendment, or you could withdraw the amendment.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Senator from the 2nd District is recognized.
I would like to perfect that amendment, sir. And strike shall not.
Can we do that verbally?
Yes. Yes, strike not seek.
Is there any objection to striking the words not seek from the amendment to create a new amendment? You rise for the purpose of objecting?
I rise for the purpose of a parliamentary inquiry because we actually have 3 amendments before us. The one that's up on the screens has actually done what you just suggested, which is strike, but the 2 we have on our desk are in error, and the one on the screen I think represents the intent of the sponsor of the amendment.
Suspend for 1 moment. Will the senator from the 2nd District approach, please? The senator from the 2nd District has asked unanimous consent to amend Amendment 1 by removing from line 7 the last word of the line and from line 8 the first word of the line so that the sentence will make sense. Is there any objection to that amendment? Without objection, so ordered. Question now is on the adoption of the floor amendment from the senator from the 2nd District. Is there objection to the adoption of the floor amendment? Object. All those in favor of the adoption of the floor amendment, rise, stand, and be counted. Senator from the 11th District is recognized.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
State
President.
your inquiry.
Isn't it true that I oppose this amendment?
Senator knows of what he speaks. Reverse. Senator from the 2nd District. State your inquiry.
Lead is it true, Mr. President, that lead is good for Georgia?
Senator knows of what he speaks. On the adoption of the floor amendment, the ayes are 16, the noes are 27, and the floor amendment is lost. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears no objection, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? Chair hears no objection, and the main question is ordered. So the bill now passed. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, no. The Secretary will unlock the machine. No trouble. On the passage of the bill, the ayes are 41, the noes are 7. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary will read House Bill 362.
House Bill 362 by Representative Clark of the 101st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 16 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to student health in elementary and secondary education, to amend Chapter 4 of Title 26 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to pharmacists and pharmacies, so as to authorize licensed health practitioners to prescribe albuterol sulfate for schools, to authorize pharmacists to fill such prescriptions, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Education and Youth recommends this bill do pass. Mr. President, Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd and others offer the First Amendment to amend House Bill 362 by inserting after prescriptions on line 11 the following: to amend Code Section 43-34-103 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to delegation of authority to physician's assistants, to authorize a physician to delegate to a physician assistant the authority to prescribe hydrocodone compound products under certain conditions, to require additional continuing education, and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd and others offer the Second Amendment. I'm sorry. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th District for the purpose of presenting the bill.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. House Bill 362 gives permission for trained school personnel to help a child suffering from an asthma attack. We've had this similar type of legislation in the last couple of years. It says a physician may write a prescription to the school for albuterol sulfate to be used in an inhaler or a nebulizer. A pharmacist must fill this prescription. A trained school employee may help a child. A school may acquire a supply of albuterol sulfate. That school employee is designated and trained in the possession and administration. The school system will develop a policy to implement this. The bill calls for immunity for a trained employee if they administer or choose not to administer albuterol sulfate. Albuterol sulfate is a safe, quick relief medication. It's a bronchodilator. In other words, it makes your lungs expand. It works in the airways by opening breathing passages and relaxing muscles. I'll be glad to answer any questions. We all know the incidence of asthma, and in Georgia, almost 10 children die per year from asthma-related conditions. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
There are no questions, Senator.
Thank you. I yield the well.
Senator from the 52nd District is recognized for the purpose of presenting the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me give you a little history of this amendment. This was vetted through the Health Care Committee last year. It was passed out of the Senate in a much stronger form by a large margin that would allow all Schedule IIs. Now, this particular one, Medical Association of Georgia had said they would support it if it was hydrocodone only, no other drugs, and the Georgia Composite Medical Board said they would support it also with that narrow definition. So this is under the prescriptive authority. It's done actually in a much stronger form in about 40 states. And with that, we're glad to entertain any questions.
You have one question. The senator from the 40th District is recognized.
Gentleman yield.
I'll yield.
So it's not true. Is it not true that the Medical Association of Georgia worked on this and agreed to this particular compromise? Is that not true?
They did, and they were not neutral on this. They supported this.
Thank you very much.
No other questions, Senator. Senator from the 45th does not wish to close the debate, and the senator from the 45th co-signed the amendment, does not need to address the amendment. The question is on the adoption of the floor amendment by the senator from the 52nd District. Is there objection to the adoption of the floor amendment? Hearing no objection, the floor amendment is adopted. There's no objection to the floor amendment, so it is adopted. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears no objection, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? The chair hears no objection, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass as amended? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, no. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the ayes are 44, the noes are 3. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary will read House Bill 551.
House Bill 551 by Representative Brockway of the 102nd, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 7 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to salary deductions applicable to public officers and employees, so as to authorize local political subdivisions to provide for voluntary contributions by employees through payroll deductions to certain not-for-profit organizations, to provide for a definition to authorize voluntary deductions from wages and or salaries of employees of the state of Georgia and local units of administration of purchases of consumer offerings through an employee purchase program facilitated by and through the Department of Administrative Services, to change the definition to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations recommends this bill do pass. Senator Albers is the 56th chairman. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Senator from the 56th District is recognized for the purpose of speaking to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 551 simply offers all of those who are employed at the state the option to use the employee purchase program, which will help those out who may have challenged credit and or unbanked. It's a great program. Most businesses use it. If there are no questions, I will yield the will.
There is a question. The senator from the 34th District is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator yield?
Yes, Senator.
Senator, can you help me understand how this program would work, and if there are interest payments, how that would work as well?
Yes, Senator. The Department of Administrative Services could work with different vendors and allow employees of the state to purchase something. Let's say they wanted to purchase furniture, electronics, something of that nature, and then that could be deducted from their paycheck through that process, and they will negotiate through the Department of Administrative Services so they have a good program, as well as the employee who chooses to go through that program will have all the information in front of them as far as what the purchase price is and interest, et cetera. It's really good for those who may not have credit because they can get a much needed technology, maybe a home computer they wouldn't normally be able to purchase, because using payroll deduction is a guaranteed way for them to get that.
Will the senator further yield?
Yes, Senator.
So what I think I'm understanding you to say is this is a program, apparently it's something that's been asked for by employees who are having credit challenges, And our way as a state is attempting to help those employees, but to ensure that the payments are made timely, it's coming out of their paycheck, but it's on an individual basis, therefore you couldn't speak to the interest. I'm trying to understand at what rate. Coming out of banking, I do know that folk with challenges normally have higher interest rates, and I'm concerned about those who may be just like anything else with title ponds and anything else. If you're helping me to get computer, furniture, I mean, what goes on in my mind is errands, rents, and no punt, but I'm just saying places where it's more costly, but I'm trying to understand the benefit other than the credit worthiness, how much they're going to be paying to repay if we are doing something, to me, that's different from what we may have done in the past. Help me understand.
And that's a great question, Senator. I'm glad you asked it. It gives me a chance to explain. This will actually help them because the interest rate will be much, much lower because it's guaranteed by their paycheck as opposed to using a third party that couldn't guarantee payment, right? This actually gets them a much lower cost, and I know over the last many years we've been unable to help our state employees get a lot of pay raises and things that might have happened during normal higher revenue times, that this is another avenue for them as well where it doesn't cost the state money, but we can help them to get things they wouldn't normally get. So this actually will save them money.
One last question, Senator, and I'm
Yes,
just
sir.
repeating what I asked earlier.
Yes.
You don't have a clue about fees and/or interest rates?
I do not have that information readily available. I do not. This just allows the program to happen. How it's executed will be with the Department of Administrative Services. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
The Senator Lucas is the senator is waived off. My apologies. There are no further questions. The senator from the 43rd is waived off. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears no objection. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? The chair hears no objection, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary will unlock the machine. Senator from the 40th District, for what purpose do you rise?
I ask unanimous consent to be excused from voting pursuant to Senate Rule 5-1.8D.
Without objection, ordered if technically possible. On the passage of the bill, the ayes are 44, the noes are 6. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary will read House Bill 394.
House Bill 394 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Chapter 26 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated related to nurses so as to revise various provisions relating to the licensure of registered professional nurses and licensed practical nurses, to revise provisions relating to the powers and duties of the Georgia Board of Nursing, to provide for acceptance of nursing education programs located outside of the United States, to provide for a time period for applicants who do not pass the licensing examination, to revise provisions related to renewal of licensure, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends this bill do pass. Senator Unterman of the 45th, Chairman. Mr. President, this completes the order.
The chair recognizes the senator from the 1st District for the purpose of presenting the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm here to present House Bill 394. This is at the request of the Secretary of State. When the LPN and the RN boards were combined last year, the enforcement of the former board was left out for the LPN aspect. So this is a bill that updates that version of the previous bill. It also goes on to establish some archaic language that is removed and has language in there about meeting continuing competency requirements. If there are no further questions, I ask for your favorable consideration, and I yield the well.
There are no questions, Senator. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears no objection and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? The chair hears no objection and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the ayes are 47, the noes are 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary will read House Bill 432.
House Bill 432 by Representative Raffensperger of the 50th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Chapter 36 of Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to annexation of territory by municipal corporations, so as to provide that local acts providing for de-annexation of property from a municipality and the annexation of the same property under another municipality, which are effective on the same date, do not create a prohibited unincorporated island, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations recommends this bill to pass by substitute. Senator Albers, the 56th chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations offers the following substitute to House Bill 432, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Chapter 36 of Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to annexation of territory by municipal corporations, so as to provide that local acts providing for the de-annexation of property from a municipality and the annexation of the same property by another municipality, which are effective on the same day, do not create a prohibited unincorporated island, to provide for effective date of municipal annexations under certain circumstances, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date and applicability, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senator Parent of the 42nd and others offer the First Amendment, amending the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations substitute to House Bill 432 by striking "to provide for an effective date of municipal annexations under certain circumstances" on lines 5 and 6, by striking "and applicability" on lines 6 through 7, by striking lines 19 through 49, by redesignating sections 3 and 4 as sections 2 and 3 respectively, and by striking lines 52 through 53 and inserting in lieu thereof "without such approval." Mr. President, this completes the order.
Senator from the 29th District is recognized for the purpose of presenting the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my privilege to bring before you House Bill 432. It has two sections. Section 1 essentially provides flexibility in the code to allow territory that might be de-annexed from one municipality to another to be able to do that, because there's a temporary period that an unincorporated island would be created. So this provides the flexibility necessary to do that. Section 2, which I believe is where we'll have most of the discussion today, has to do with local acts that involve annexation.
And what it does, and I'll try to be brief, it is slightly complicated. If we adopt Section 2, what we will do is we will preserve an individual property owner's right to be annexed into an abutting city under the 100% method, unless we provide otherwise in a local bill. So the General Assembly will retain that authority, but if the bill is silent on that question, then the default position will be to protect property owners' rights under the 100% method. Adoption of Section 2 will preserve home rule power of cities to annex an individual's property with the individual's consent. Again, unless the General Assembly provides otherwise in a local bill. It preserves the General Assembly's right to annex or de-annex by local bill, regardless of any home rule annexation. And it has no effect on any Fulton or DeKalb annexation matters currently pending before the General Assembly. Now, I know you're going to hear on an amendment. What I'd like to do is, when I come back and close, I'll speak to any specifics that are brought up on the amendment, but I would urge that you defeat Amendment 1, which would remove Section 2, and I'd appreciate your favorable consideration of the bill. There are no questions, Mr. President.
You have one question, Senator. Senator from the 26th District is recognized.
Senator Yield.
Yes.
Why do we need this bill if local governments can annex or de-annex on their own, and sometimes it's with the vote of the community itself?
Because if the General Assembly is silent on the question of the method of annexation, it creates some confusion, which has led, in fact, to litigation. And so going forward, prospectively, I think we need to clear that confusion up in the law, and I believe that's what Section 2 does.
Would the Senator yield further?
Yes.
I thought we cleared it up. We passed consolidated government, and that's without the cities or the counties getting together to do it at all. We did it in the General Assembly. So don't we have the authority now to abolish a city?
We certainly,
or to annex it or de-annex it?
We do.
Right now?
We do. The question is, when we are silent as to the method, it creates confusion that, again, has led to litigation, and that's what Section 2 resolves.
No other questions, Senator. Has the amendment been read? The amendment is read. Senator from the 42nd District is recognized for the purpose of presenting the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, pay attention. Something is a little bit smelly in the Capitol right now. This Section 2 pertains to some commercial property that's in my district. The dispute has been between the cities of Brookhaven and Chamblee. The senator from the 40th also represents Brookhaven and Chamblee in our General Assembly. In 2013, the General Assembly gave the voters, 11,000 people, the opportunity to vote on whether or not they wanted to be annexed into the city of Chamblee. That act was signed into law, declaring the referendum by our governor. Before the referendum took place, a certain commercial property owner tried to get itself annexed by the 100% method into the adjoining city next door. Then the referendum went through, and the 11,000 people, including the commercial property, went to the city of Chamblee. Then you know what happened next, and the senator from the 29th alluded to it. The property owner sued, and it has been in court. They have been shut down and denied and lost at every step along the way. They have lost in the Supreme Court of Georgia. The Supreme Court has held that the General Assembly clearly intended those residents to have the opportunity to vote whether they wanted to go to the city of Chamblee, and that this commercial property would go with them. The reason I think this is so stinky is if you will look at Section 3, you see that it says that this is a retroactive opportunity. The property owner has been shut down by the voters and by the courts, and now they are back asking us, and it's trying to be slid through in committee. It didn't come out of the House this way. It did not come out of the House this way. The original bill is a fine bill and totally innocuous. It was slid in committee. They hoped no one would notice, and that they could come back and accomplish what they have been unable to do through the will of the people, the will of the General Assembly, and the courts of our great state. And you will see that it says, as of January 1st, 2013, on line 53. Guess what happened on July 1st, 2013? That is the day that this particular commercial property owner applied to be annexed to the other city. This is a sweetheart deal that does not smell right. It stinks to high heaven. I think that this legislation, a committee sub, falls right into the category that we were so ably warned about by the senator from the 45th yesterday, when she said that these are the danger days, D-A-N-G-E-R, that people are out there in the halls trying to manipulate us. I would ask, I've got bipartisan support on this. I think everyone understands that it smells bad, and I would ask that you respect the will of the voters in this matter. I'm happy to answer any questions or yield the will.
The senator from the 40th district is recognized for the purpose of asking a question.
Does the senator yield?
I certainly do, to my friend from DeKalb.
Strange bedfellows. Is it not true?
Well, we love each other some days, Senator.
So to speak. Is it not true that I concur with everything that you just said?
I'm very glad to have your support, Senator.
Senator from the 34th district is recognized for the purpose of asking a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I would, of course.
Senator, I heard your testimony. Does this mean a diaper need changing?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that, Senator?
A diaper needs changing?
Yes, ma'am.
No other questions. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator from the 29th district is recognized for the purpose of closing the debate. And addressing the amendment. Give the speaker and the well your attention, please.
This is my 5th year in the General Assembly. I feel like I've established a reputation for bringing things to you that are sound policy. I don't think I've ever questioned a member's motives for bringing a piece of legislation from the well. I don't think that's appropriate. But I will say, as to the specific case that was mentioned, if we want to talk about the specific case, let's talk about it. There was a House bill in the 2013 legislative session, House Bill 619. It had the problem that I described earlier regarding the ambiguities around annexation procedures. And so there was a letter that was sent to the governor on March 28, 2013. It was signed by the senator from the 40th. It was signed by the senator from the 44th. It was signed by the senator from the 55th. It was signed by the senator from the 41st. It was signed by the senator from the 10th. It was signed by the senator from the 43rd. And it was signed by the predecessor to the senator from the 42nd. And it reads, House Bill 619, authored by House Representative, was passed by the Senate. Unfortunately, it was done so in violation of Senate rules and processes for passage of local legislation. This was done in error as a result of a clerical and administrative placement of the bill on the Senate calendar before it was appropriately addressed by the Senate DeKalb County delegation. The undersigned hereby respectfully request the veto of House Bill 619 so the discrepancies can be addressed in the appropriate manner. So if we're going to talk about things stinking, maybe not following proper procedure here in the Senate might be something that would stink. So the governor did sign the local bill anyway, which created the local controversy that the senator from the 42nd referenced. The fact of the matter is, before the referendum took place, the property owners requested through the 100% rule to be annexed into the city of Brookhaven. That has not been allowed because of the passage of a bill which, by the admission of the entire delegation that was impacted, should never have left this body. But this bill isn't just about that specific case. This bill is about clearing up ambiguities in how we do these sorts of local bills. This will solve this problem now and going forward. It will provide, and it will provide relief. It will provide relief in a circumstance of extreme mistakes here where we did not follow our own rules in moving forward a piece of legislation improperly. And now property owners are being punished because of the failure of this Senate to follow its own rules. An adoption of the amendment is going to allow that miscarriage of justice to go forward, not only in this situation, but in future situations. So we should adopt House Bill 432 in its entirety. We should defeat Amendment 1 and move on with the rest of our business. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
There are a couple questions. Waves off questions. The question is on the adoption of the floor amendment by the senator from the 42nd District to the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the floor amendment to the committee substitute? There is objection. All those in favor, rise, stand, and be counted. Reverse. There's one over there. Did you get Marty in the door? On the adoption of the amendment, the ayes are 28, the noes are 8, and the amendment is adopted. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Hearing no objection, the committee substitute as amended is adopted. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears no objection, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? Are there any objections? The chair hears no objection, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? Question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. The secretary will unlock the machine. What purpose does the senator rise?
Mr. President?
State your inquiry, please.
Isn't it true that now that my amendment has been adopted, I fully support the bill?
The senator knows of what she speaks.
Yeah, it's fine now. Yeah.
On the passage of the bill, the ayes are 48, the noes are 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary will read House Bill 504.
House Bill 504 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Code Section 31-12-3.2 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to meningological disease, vaccinations, and disclosure so as to revise provisions regarding vaccination against meningological disease of a college student, to amend Article 2 of Chapter 34 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to physicians so as to authorize the administration of vaccines by pharmacists or nurses pursuant to vaccine protocol agreements with physicians, to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends this bill do pass by substitute. Senator Unterman of the 45th, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services offers the following substitute to House Bill 504, a bill to be entitled An Act to amend Code Section 31-12-3.2 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to meningological disease, vaccinations, and disclosures, so as to revise provisions regarding vaccination against meningological disease of college students, to amend Article 2 of Chapter 34 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to physicians, so as to authorize the administration of vaccines by pharmacists, nurses, or pursuant to vaccine protocol agreements with physicians, to provide for definitions, to provide for requirements for the content of vaccine protocol agreements, to provide that a party to a vaccine protocol agreement shall not delegate his or her authority, to limit the number of vaccine protocol agreements into which a physician may enter at any one time, to prohibit certain entities from entering into vaccine protocol agreements, to provide for rules and regulations, to provide for limited liability, to provide for applicability, to provide for statutory construction, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th District for the purpose of presenting the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know it's late this afternoon, members of the Senate, so I'll be brief. All this bill does is increase the types of vaccines that can be given in a pharmacy. As you know, we changed that a couple of years ago so you get your flu vaccine. This bill just increases it and sets up that protocol agreement. I'll be glad to answer any questions. If there's no questions, I yield the well. Thank you very much.
The senator from the 54th District is recognized for the purpose of speaking to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the spirit of the chair, I will also be brief. I rise in support of 504, and I just want to publicly take the opportunity to thank the Chairman of Health and Human Services and her counterpart in the House, the Chair of Health and Human Services in the House, for their work on this. Most of you who've been here a while know that adult vaccination rate is a passion of mine, and making sure that we have healthy citizens who are able to work. And I appreciate those two chairs, as well as all folks in the industry, MAG, pharmacists, all those working together to come up with something that's going to improve the health of Georgians. And so I appreciate their work and consideration. Mr. President, I yield the will.
The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears no objection, and the committee substitute is adopted. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears no objection, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? The chair hears no objection, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the ayes are 47, the noes are 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary will read House Bill 452.
House Bill 452 by Representative Bollinger, the 23rd, and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to amend Article 4 of Chapter 13 of Title 19 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to the Family Violence and Stalking Protective Order Registry, so as to provide for registration of pretrial release orders that prohibit contact with other issued in this state and foreign courts, to revise the the short title to revise definitions to provide for conforming references to the defined terms to provide for related matters to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Senator Stone to the 23rd Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil offers the following substitute to House Bill 452, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend Article 4 of Chapter 13 of Title 19 from the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to family violence and stalking protective order registry so as to provide for registration of pretrial release orders that prohibit contact with others issued in this state and in foreign courts, to revise the short title to revise definitions to provide for conforming references to the defined terms, to provide for related matters to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
For what purpose does the senator from the 29th District rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, I was going to ask the Secretary if he could read Rule 9-1.1.
Secretary will read the rule.
Senate Rule 9-1.1, Senatorial Conduct. When the Senate is in session, senators shall conduct themselves at all times with dignity and in a manner to ensure decorum in the deliberations of the body, and shall be called to order by the President for activities to the contrary, including unnecessary conversation which is disruptive to the business of the session and inappropriate dress.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 22nd District for the purpose of presenting his very first bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to request the support for HB 452, which is a simple bill, but an important bill to protect victims in Georgia. As you are aware, when a person gets a protective order, temporary order, a restraining order, or injunctive order, that order is placed in the Family Violence and Stalking Protective Order Registry. This registry allows persons such as judges, prosecutors, and the police to have a record of such protective orders. That way, they can be enforced without the victim of the crime actually having the order in his or her hand. What this bill does is two things. Number one, we're going to amend the name to the Protective Order Registry. Because basically victims of crime, it goes beyond just family violence, it goes beyond just stalking. The second aspect of this bill, which is very important, is we're going to add pretrial release orders and sentencing orders to those orders that would be placed in the Georgia Protective Order Registry. Therefore, we are expanding the reach. This is a good bill to keep our citizens safe and help victims of crime. And if there are no questions, I yield the well.
There are questions, Senator. The senator from the 56th District is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Yes.
Senator, what is your profession?
I am an attorney.
You're an attorney. As an attorney, Senator, have you ever helped out victims with any type of protective orders?
I have had the opportunity to do that. When I was a former prosecutor, I used to deal with these orders.
Senator, will you further yield?
Yes, I will.
Based on those facts, do you think it's really appropriate for you to even bring this bill today?
Well, it was actually as a former prosecutor, and I think as a former prosecutor and one that helped victims on numerous occasions for 12 years, that I would be a perfect person to actually help with this particular bill.
Perfect person, okay. Senator, will you further yield?
Yes, I will.
Senator, you mentioned that this was a simple bill. Do you believe protecting people should just be simple?
I think that I concur with the senator's remark that it is not simple, but it should be easy to always side on the side of victims.
Senator, will you further your?
Yes,
I'm
I will.
confused. You said it was simple. Now you're saying it's not simple. Were you before you were against it? Help us understand.
I'm totally for this bill, and I believe that the senator is very adamant in his questions. But I'll stick with it's always easy to stick with victims.
Okay. Then one final question, if
Yes.
you'd yield for me, Senator. Being a former prosecutor and being so knowledgeable in this area, will you give me the rest of the summary of Article 4, Chapter 13, Title 19, please?
Article 4, Chapter 13, Title 19. I can give you somewhat of a summary, which is basically dealing with protective orders within the code.
Well done, Senator. Congratulations on your first bill.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator from the 30th District is recognized.
Yes.
Well, microphone work. Thank you. Senator, is this your first bill?
Yes, it is.
Senator, have you seen the traditions of other freshmen when they're in the well giving their first bill?
Yes, I have.
With the, Senator, will you yield one more time?
Yes.
With the serious nature of the legislation in front of us, will you give us the opportunity to give you a bye, to give you your traditional treatment, if you will, on your second bill?
Okay, that would be perfectly fine.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I yield the well, Mr. President.
Senator from the 53rd District is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
I will absolutely yield the
Senator
well.
from the 30 is trying to be nice to you, but I don't feel that way. You know, Senator, you're talking about protective orders, and I see you've even marked out domestic violence stalking and about trying to help victims. So I'm kind of curious to your intentions for this bill. Could you explain that to me?
Well, I would say to the illustrious great senator from the 53rd
that sounds pretty good.
That the key to this bill is always that when you're trying to help victims, the intent will always be one that is going to be morally and outstanding upright.
Well, thank you for bringing that word up. You just mentioned the word morally. Could you help me find moral turpitude in this bill? Because if you're talking about morally, excuse me, I've got the floor. If you're talking about morally, surely you'd want to talk about moral turpitude, and it's not in this bill anywhere. Could you explain that, please?
Well, I don't believe that moral turpitude is in the bill, but the bill, because it's designed to help people and help victims of crime, it has a moral underpinning throughout it.
So you're not for moral turpitude?
I'm not for moral turpitude.
Could you give me the definition for moral turpitude, Senator?
It ain't good.
What'd he say?
Chair recognizes Senator 46, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I will.
Senator, I know you've heard the talk out here today, and lots of your colleagues have come up to me and said, that senator from the 22nd's bill ain't worth 30 cents.
Uh-oh.
And I said, no. Let's don't be so harsh on him. And lo and behold, I look on the front page, and it's got 30 cents down there. Would you explain that? What is that? Have you already been graded by, the fiscal office on this?
The fiscal note on this, I don't think has been completed.
It
may need some work.
What is this 30 cents down there? Is that reflective of the value of this legislation?
Absolutely not. The value is beyond monetary value.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 10th.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. President. When the Senator yield?
Yes, I will.
Senator, we do live in the great state of Georgia, don't we?
That's correct.
And which is still part of the United States, is that correct?
That's correct.
Senator, why are you making references to foreign in your bill?
The reference to foreign courts is actually defined earlier in this chapter, and it applies to courts of other states in the great state and the great nation, the United States of America.
Senator Yale?
Yes.
Senator, was that some legalese or just something you made up?
It may be a little bit of both. It actually is the law. Thank you.
Senator Yale?
Yes.
Senator, I noticed on line 21 that you got competence jurisdiction deleted.
Yes.
Are courts incompetent? Is that what you're implying?
No, this is actually defined elsewhere in the code, and I believe it was considered that may have just been surplusage that was used in that particular bill.
Senator Yale?
Yes.
Senator, you still didn't answer the question. Are courts incompetent or what?
Courts are very competent. I always say that.
Thank you, Senator.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 54th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Yes, I will.
Senator, I understand that you are trying to expand protection for victims. Is that what you indicated?
Yes.
I'm concerned about the scope that you are using to expand, and I just want to make sure we're all clear. On line 28, you've stricken specific code references and just given us an entire article. Can you tell us all of the offenses or all of the things that are in the article that you're covering there? Article 7 of Chapter 5, Title 16?
Senator, I know if it's in Title 16, they're crimes, and we need to make sure we protect victims of all crimes.
So it could be any jaywalking, perhaps.
We need to protect people jaywalking too.
Now,
they might hit somebody.
Are you sure that there's no provisions of Sharia law in Title 16?
I can guarantee you there's no provisions of Sharia law.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 47th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the fine senator from the 22nd yield?
Yes, I will.
Do you serve on any committees with the senator from the 47th?
Yes, I do.
Do you know the name of that committee?
The Economic and Development Committee and Tourism Committee, yes.
And if I remember right, you kind of represent an area that's going to have a little tourism coming your way.
That's absolutely correct.
I think you ought to go ahead and yield the well so we can get you home and get things tidied up for that little event.
Thank you so much. I do yield the well, Mr. President.
Senator has yielded the well. Well done, well done. Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection? Without objection, committee substitute is adopted. Now, does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection? Agreed and report to committee which fail pass the bill. Chairs none. Report to committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chairs none. Main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary, unlock the machine. Chair recognizes Senator 25th. What purpose you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
I was wondering if I vote green on this, does that guarantee me master's tickets from the senator from the 22nd?
I don't know. They say he drills with a big auger, so you know he might be able to finagle something. Senator from the 47th, please approach. On the pass of the bill, the yeas are 52 and the nays are 0. And this bill, amnesty, Rex Constitution majority, is therefore adopted. Secretary will read House Bill 492.
House Bill 492 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th and others, a bill to be entitled Act to amend Chapter 11 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to offenses against public order and safety so as to revise provisions regarding carrying in unauthorized locations, to amend Article 4 of Chapter 18 of Title 50 relating to the inspection of public records so as to provide for disclosure of records relating to licensing and possession of firearms between the judges of the probate court, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends this bill do pass by substitute. Senator Harper, the 7th chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety offers the following substitute to House Bill 492. A bill to be entitled An Act to amend Code Section 15-11-2 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to definitions for juvenile proceedings under juvenile code so as to provide that minor violations of weapons in school safety zones are not considered Class B designated felonies, to restore certain provisions of their prior form due to conflict between enactment of 2014 House Bill 60 and House Bill 826 to amend Chapter 11 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to offenses against public order and safety so as to revise provisions regarding carrying in unauthorized locations, to clarify exemptions from weapons carry laws, to provide for a renewal period, to provide for and revise definitions, to revise persons to whom no weapons carry license shall be issued, to revise procedures in the renewal of a license, to revise procedures regarding the revocation, loss, or damage to a license, to clarify criteria and for other purposes. Mr. President. Amendments, please. Yes, sir. Mr. President, Senator Ford of the 39th and others offer the First Amendment to amend the Senate Public Safety Committee substitute to House Bill 492 by replacing line 11 with the following: license to clarify criteria for the verification of a weapons carry license, to prohibit restoration of gun rights to persons who have been convicted of a forcible felony, to authorize by redesignating sections 7 through 14 as sections 8 through 15 respectively, and inserting in between lines 181 and 182 the following: section 7, said chapter is further amended by revising code section 16-11-131 relating to possession of firearms by convicted felons and first order probationers as follows: 16-11-131 and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senator Ford of the 39th and others offer the Second Amendment to amend the Senate Public Safety Committee substitute to House Bill 492 by replacing line 46 with the following: unauthorized locations, by revising paragraph 7 of subsection B and subsection E, and by deleting line 48 and adding in between lines 51 and 52 the following: and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senator Ford of the 39th and others offer the Third Amendment to amend the Senate Public Safety Committee substitute to House Bill 492 by replacing line 13 with the following: employee's personal vehicle under certain circumstances, to allow a person to be detained by law enforcement for the purpose of investigating whether such person has a weapons carry license, to revise provisions regarding and for other purposes. Mr. President, this completes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 47th present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I rise to bring you House Bill 492. Plain and simple, this is what they call a gun bill. You know, we've all had our shave and our haircut. But I will tell you that, you know, when they pass a House bill over there, sometimes we don't catch all the mistakes. And the main part of House Bill 492 is to clean up a little bit of some of the things from a prior year's legislation called House Bill 60. I think that you'll find House Bill 492 has done a good job of combining one of our Senate bills, Senate Bill 141 from the senator from the 10th. You know, when I look at the way that the laws get passed in Georgia, and the senator from the 10th has worked real hard to make sure that we're not taking little kids to federal penitentiaries for taking a peanut butter knife to school. They think you'll see that throughout the bill. One of the other things that this bill will do is to clean up some of the language that's supported by the Probate Judges Council, dealing with the issues of renewal, when to issue a renewal, the methods of retention of the records, and how they're going to mine the data on those records, keeping up with the records. One of the things I think you'll see in the bill is that both ACCG and GMA support. It clarifies some language of the restriction for volunteers that are working at a city or county function on when they can carry. They clarifies that for the public as well as those volunteers. And it also, one of the things that I know the senator from the 39th, he's a big supporter of some gun bills that he likes to see. When we look at polling places across the state, if you're in a polling place, like in my district, we have a lot of churches that use a polling place, used as a polling place, that even though they may allow their parishioners to use that site during an election, it clarifies that on those days when we're having an election, there'll be no guns on a polling site. I'll be brief.
And as the senator from the 49th said I'll try to answer any questions if there are any. I think there's some amendments that have been placed, and I'll ask you not to support the amendments, but to support this very important cleanup on this bill.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 10th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. When Senator Yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator, is it not true that I appreciate your concerns in expressing that 141 has been included in HB 492?
You have, and I appreciate your efforts.
Senator, isn't it also true that I was working with the representative of HB 492 to ensure that this language made it through passage in this General Assembly this year?
I think you've worked diligently on that, and I'm hoping the House will move your bill as well.
Senator, further yield?
Yes, sir.
Though I wasn't a proponent of HB 60 that we passed out as General Assembly last year, isn't it also true that I plan to support your bill 492 today?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the support.
Thank you, Senator.
No further questions, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from the 39th to speak to his 3 amendments.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, about a year ago, and I know the House is let out and the House members are very interested in getting their bills passed or moved along, but this is important when we're talking about the safety of the people of the state of Georgia. So I would ask your indulgence, House members and Senate members, to listen to what is being said. About a year ago, one of the reporters in the back of the room wrote an article after the session was over saying, gee, we didn't know what was in SB 60. We got a lot of surprises in the bill. But guess what? I wasn't surprised. I was in Judiciary Committee. I was here on the floor. I said what was wrong with it. And some of the public was surprised. Some of the media was surprised, but I wasn't surprised. And the amendments that I bring forward today at this very hour are amendments that are good, strong, law and order amendments. Amendments that are designed to ensure the safety of our citizens. And that's why I'm bringing these amendments. The hour is late, but this is very important business when we talk about protecting police officers, when we talk about taking guns out of the hands, not of everyday citizens, but taking guns out of the hands of forcible felons, not just felons. We're not talking about people who embezzled money. We're talking about people that have raped and robbed in our state. If you look on my First Amendment, AM 410113, this is an amendment which would prohibit a forcible felon, a felon who has created mayhem in our communities, from possessing a firearm. Somebody who has committed murder in the second degree, burglary in any degree, gone in someone's house, robbery, armed robbery, home invasion, kidnapping, hijacking of an aircraft or motor vehicle, aggravated stalking, rape, aggravated child molestation, aggravated sexual battery, arson in the first degree, the manufacturing, transporting, distribution, or possession of explosives with the intent to kill, injure, or intimidate individuals or destroy a public building, terroristic threats, or acts of treason or insurrection. If you believe that a felon should not possess a firearm, you need to vote for this bill. The second one is, in SB 60, we said that you can carry a gun into a government building, except for one place, the state capitol. You know, if I had thought about it, maybe I would have included that in here. But that's for another day at another time. But all this does is prohibit anyone from carrying a firearm into a public building, your commission building, your city hall, and other government buildings. SB 60 allows for it. I know some of you didn't know it was in there. And this is an opportunity for you to vote to take guns out of government buildings. And then finally, and Mr. President, I really would like, I think we need a little bit more order.
Let me have the Senate's attention for a moment. We've got some guests in here, but the chamber is indeed too noisy. I need you to quieten down, and this is our last major bill before special orders, and the senator has 3 amendments he's trying to speak to, and I know he wants to be brief, but if he can't hear himself, it's difficult to do.
I will be brief. But this third one is the most important one, because we come down here and talk about how much we love our police officers, and we do. They go in when we come out. They stand up for us when other folks won't stand up for us. But if a police officer sees someone with carrying a sidearm or carrying a weapon, they cannot inquire with that person whether they have a carry permit. That's what we did in SB 60. This puts our public safety officers, our law enforcement officers, our deputies, our police officers at risk. And we have an opportunity to do the right thing by them and make it known that our words are backed up by our actions. Those are the 3 amendments, Mr. President. I hope I've been brief, but I hope brevity does not in any way prevent us from understanding the gravity of what we do. SB 60, I did not like as a rule, generally. I voted against it. If I thought I could, I would put in a bill to repeal it. But regardless, you have the opportunity in these 3 reasonable, considerate amendments to do the right thing, to keep guns out of the hands of felons, to protect our police officers and protect the people that we employ in our city halls and commission buildings, courthouses throughout the state. Mr. President, I'll yield the well unless there are questions that I'd be glad to entertain.
You do have questions.
Yes,
Chair
sir.
recognizes the senator from the 29th for a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask about your first amendment.
Yes, sir.
And the lines 19 to 26. Is that definition of forcible felony, is that from existing code, or is that something that would be new to the code?
You're the attorney. I would avail myself of the senator from the 23rd if he can opine on this. He's the chair of Judiciary, non-civil. I don't know. I can't answer your question, but I know whether it's defined or not, it's defined by virtue of this bill. Somebody who murders, someone who rapes, someone who molests children, those are folk, however they're defined. I don't want them nowhere near a firearm.
Will the senator yield for one additional question?
Absolutely.
At lines 45 and 46, and again...
In the First Amendment?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm still referring to the First Amendment.
Yes, sir.
In lines 45 and 46 and 69 and 70, if I'm understanding this correctly, what you are saying with this amendment is that someone who receives a pardon, whether it be from the President of the United States or from this state's Board of Pardon and Paroles, or receives relief under this other federal code section, that they would not be, that their rights to own a firearm would not be restored at that time. Is that correct?
If that's how you read it, you've got the law degree. I would concede to your assessment. And I'll be honest with you, even a person who has committed a rape, if they get a pardon from anyone, I still don't want them to have a firearm. They're a danger to this community. They're a danger to their neighbors and the other 10 million Georgians who live in this state. Thank you,
Senator.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Senator from 36 for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. The senator yield.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, I think these are good and sound measures with which I am confident a majority of Georgians agree with. I'd like to, on your third amendment, I know it was, it's brief and should be self-explanatory, but isn't it true that when you strike this language, the language that you're striking, a person carrying a weapon shall not be subject to detention for the sole purpose of investigating whether such person has a weapons carry license. Didn't we hear from the law enforcement community, and I remember specifically several chiefs of police saying that this ties their hands as law enforcement people for us to have language in that bill that was put in there that does not allow them to request that a person show their license.
You are correct. We heard from law enforcement. It's ironic that if a law enforcement officer sees someone without a seatbelt on, they can stop them and write them a citation or whatever, but somebody carrying a AK-47 down Main Street can't be stopped and asked about whether they have a carry permit. I think that's worse than contradictory. I think it's unsafe. I think it puts that police officer who's sworn to protect and serve, it puts them at risk, and it puts our communities at risk.
Hadn't this very General Assembly said that a law enforcement official can stop a truck hauling tires to see if their decal to be a tire hauler is in order? Now, they have that authority right now under Georgia law, do they not?
Absolutely. It's my understanding.
That's right. But yet they can't stop someone carrying a weapon and ask them to produce.
You're exactly right. I think it makes our communities
It's a very sound
less safe.
amendment. I really hope these are not partisan issues, and this is not a partisan amendment. This is on behalf of the law enforcement community and public safety.
It's good law and order.
Thank you.
Good law and order amendment. Thank you. I will yield the well unless there are any questions, Mr. President.
Senator, I had one further question, if you'll yield, and I apologize. I have been given to understand that in this bill, fingerprints would no longer be mandatory for license renewals of carry permits.
That is my understanding.
So we're in a dangerous zone of creating more loopholes for people who shouldn't be carrying a weapon.
I asked the senator from the 49th when he comes to the well to discuss that or ask me a question or clarify now or come to the well about the fingerprint renewals. I was going to opine on it, but I can't and I won't.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
I don't know if the lights were meant to be on. Senator from the 30th, your light's on. Did you ask a question?
If you could get out of the crowd there, I'll take it.
You're recognized to ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator yield? It's one quick question.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And I just don't know the answer.
Yes,
How
sir.
many forcible felons have been pardoned in the state?
I have no idea. One of the things, I think we have a pretty good, I don't know how many, but if you've been a member of the Judiciary Committee Non-Civil, chaired by the senator from the 23rd, pardon paroles has come before us to provide more transparency. I don't know if we have the number because, the pardon paroles, their deliberations, and I don't even know if their outcomes are public information, but there are forcible felons in this state who get pardoned. They get gun rights restored, they get other rights restored, so it does happen.
Thank you, Senator. We just have no idea how many. Thank you.
Well, maybe after the passage of the bill calling for more transparency for pardon paroles, we'll have a better understanding. But at this point, it's considered, I think, a state secret.
No further questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
I think you're fine. You wish to? You do? Chair recognizes Senator from the 47th. Close the debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a big difference in some of the things that the senator from the 39th and myself agree and disagree on. Quite honestly, for me, one of the things that I believe in very strongly is the Bill of Rights that we have as citizens of this country. And for me, one of those that's very important is our Second Amendment. I think that you'll see that, you know, the senator from the 39th opined that he didn't like somebody carrying a gun, and I think that pretty much would be whether they're a felon or probably any citizen in the state. Myself, I believe a little bit differently. Quite honestly, this week alone, I saw 2 news reports. Both of them were robberies that were stopped by citizens that dealt with the situation and did it quite effectively. I believe that the Second Amendment is very important, and I want to make sure that we protect those Second Amendments. I'll ask you to defeat each of the amendments that have been proposed and vote for the bill. One of the things that, for me, I do want to ask you, as we try to work in a bipartisan situation, they work with me. Thank you. I yield the well.
Question is on amendment number 1, authored by the senator from the 39th. Is there objection? There is objection. Senator from 39th, what purpose you rise?
I was going to call for the yeas and nays at the appropriate
Shall the
time.
ayes and nays be sustained? Clearly 5 have voted. All those in favor of amendment number 1 will vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary, unlock the machine.